Ready to roll? Okay. Special shkoyach to all Musadrim, Zeitlin and Nachman and Dovi Fried, Breslov Research for providing the English translation and the notes. And we're diving into Torah Chaf Gimel in Tinyana. It's tied up with Chaf Daled and actually relates to quite a few other Torahs. So we've already explained Beinyan Simcha. What Rabbeinu Zal is about to do basically is to show us that Simcha is a standalone, but it can be so powerful that when a person experiences Marashchara, Yisurin, Atzvus, Daiga, Yagain, Anacha, all these different words which we're starting to unpack, even when a person has that, not if, but even when a person has that, on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, annual basis, what ends up happening is that Simcha has the power to actually turn it around. Literally turn it around till it becomes absorbed in the Simcha. So it's a little bit like bottle b'shishim, where the one chelik of treif isn't now a 61st part, and there's one part treif and 60 kosher, and the pshat is the 60 kosher now absorbs the treif, but the treif is still treif. No, that's not the pshat. It means that the treif part is actually part of the kosher. So this is quite extraordinary. That means it becomes part of the simcha. So if there would be, let's say, 10 parts of atzvus and 100 parts of simcha, so now there's the potential for 110 parts of simcha. If there would be 1,000 parts of atzvus and the person's simcha is able to absorb that means you'd have whatever simcha he has plus 1,000. And we're talking about in quantities, but really what Rabbeinu Zal explains in terms of the beauty of this mashal is that the nimshal is that the mind is exactly the same as a circle of dancers who are happy, and their happiness is so strong that when they pull someone in from the side, they can actually help that person become happy himself. So that's an astonishing chidush, number one. But the number two of this is that Rabbeinu Zal wants more from us. He wants us to experience the ultimate simcha, and that would be not to be afraid of mara shchera. Mara, we translate it as bitter. It's a taste. That what I experience, I find the mara in it. That's that which is not sweet but sour, bitter, and shchera from lashon shachar, dark, black. That instead of seeing the white in our life, which we gave as a mashal last time, of a huge white sheet with one black dot, instead of getting stuck on the black dot and then obsessed by the black dot and then thinking about the black dot, stay focused on the toiv, and sur mira, the bad, the yisurin, the atzvus, the marashchara, will sur mira, it will remove itself, it will go away by itself. I don't have to fight the ra to win. I have to just be basimcha, and memela, what can happen, and this is an extraordinary idea, that a person can have enough simcha that they become so unafraid of the atzvus, unafraid of mashchara, unafraid, and all of these are thoughts. We're going to look at that in a few moments. All of these are thoughts. The Yetzer Hara is a thought. Torah Memtes, Rabbeinu Zal tells us that kol ha-machshavas ra'os, that's the Yetzer Hara. Machshav Torah, that's the Yetzer Tov. So, and he brings it from the pasuk. It's a very important pasuk. Love HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chol levavcha. Love Hashem with all your thoughts. And Chazal unpack that. It's the last Mishnah in Brachas. Levavcha means b'shnei yitzarecha, because levavcha is plural. Libecha would be your heart or your mind, but levavcha is thoughts. I think we mentioned Sefer Haredim actually says that that whenever the word lev is doubled over in levav, now it's plural. So what Rabbeinu Zal is essentially teaching us is that it's possible that a person's mind could be so absorbed by the white, by the good, by the toiv, that he's able to be unafraid of thoughts that are atzvus, thoughts that are marashchara, thoughts of yagoin v'anacha. Actually, one's not really a thought. Yagoin is a thought. That's the Malbim. Rav Nachman showed me the Malbim and the Sefer that I was sharing with you, which is HaKarmel. So the Malbim has 2 volumes. It goes through every single word in Tanakh and shows you the difference between, let's say, one word and another. So, for example, Yagon Vanacha, he explains the difference between the two. And Yagon Vanacha, Yagon is agony. That's where the English word comes from. Yagon is agony. I'm agonizing. Sorry? And anacha is the toitzah of agony. That when I'm agonizing, I go, "Ay, ay," and I put out a
like more of a physical.
Yes, it's a physical manifestation of what's going on inside. Rather, like we've said, that sasain and simcha. Sasain is an external demonstration of simcha that's inside. Simcha is an inside job. Simcha. According to Rabbeinu Zal, which Bez Hashem will get to, mitzvah gedola liyos b'simcha tamid. That's an extraordinary statement. If we really take Rabbeinu Zal seriously, because he's the tzaddik MS. MS means the total reality, from Aleph to Taf and Mem, exactly juxtapositions in between. So it's in perfect perspective. There's no distortion. It's 100% reality. Only Kodesh Baruch Hu's MS. Klal Yisrael is part of that, and so is the Torah. And the tzaddik ha-MS means that Rabbeinu Zal does not give opinions. I've never seen where he says Lefi ani astasi. Why does he Lefi ani astasi? I mean, so be humble. No, this is the tzaddik MS, that what he tells you is das elokim mamash. So when he says mitzvah gdol liyos besimcha tamid, the obvious premise there, I'm just suggesting this is Pashat Pshat, is that if it's tamid, that means there's always reason to be happy. Because tamid means no matter what the circumstance, no matter what time of life I'm in, I could be in my last years of my life, in the beginning of my life, tamid means always, without any exception. We're going to look at that word later when we learn the term more clearly, because it does have 2 meanings. Tamid can mean consistently, like the korban tamid was consistently brought every morning, every afternoon. The menorah was consistently lit every morning, afternoon. But then you've got tamid, which is lechem apanim, which had to be on ala shulchan tamid, without never being there. So the new 12 loaves were pushed onto the table as the previous week's 12 loaves are removed. But the table could never be empty. The shulchan could never be empty. So that's tamid constantly. But Rabbeinu Zal is giving us, it's a mitzvah gedol liyos b'simcha tamid. It can't be that he's asking us to do something that's not possible. And therefore, because this is not just an opinion, it's coming from the tzaddik MS, who's literally, if I'm allowed to say these words, is incapable of doing something that doesn't have significance. And even he admitted himself that no matter what physical movement he would make and the tone of his voice, everything has significance. So when we're taking the tzaddik MS seriously, then when he gets into sasain and simcha, and it tells us that, and Hashem's dictionary is perfect. There can't be any mistakes. It's simply impossible. So when we're dealing with Lashon HaKodesh, you can unpack. It's a treasure. It's a treasure island. Doesn't matter where you dig. You don't need a map. You don't need any map for Treasure Island, because it doesn't matter where you dig, you're going to find treasure. Rabbeinu Zal is Treasure Island. The Torah is Treasure Island. So it comes along Rabbeinu Zal, basically is telling us that Simcha is the Metzias. That's why Ein Shum Yush Ba'olam Klal. That means it doesn't exist. It can only be a human perception, but actually as a reality, it's not in God's dictionary. In fact, even the word Yush in its Shorish is a Yud, Aleph, Shin, actually spells the 3 words, Ein Shum Yush. So that means in the Yush, that I'm perceiving, Ein Shum Yush, it's an innocent misunderstanding of God's reality. And that's why it's possible for Rabbeinu Zal to come along and be Mechadesh, mitzvah, not stam, gedola. Just like there's a Avera gedola. Who knows? We can talk about the Averas gedolas and chamuros.
The Rebbe says mitzvah gedolas b'simcha must be. There's a constant also battle that's giving you reason not to be b'simcha.
Yes.
Whereas like we have to tell you to do this because at the same time you're facing and opposing an opponent.
Yes, it has to be 100%. I agree totally. The fact that he has to tell us this, and it's a mitzvah, that means it doesn't come easily. Happens to be it's the default. What's that mean? The whole of creation screams out Simcha. The whole Bria is Simcha. We mentioned that in Sheva Brachos, we say the words that actually is preparation for marriage, and it's not enough to say it once under the chuppah. It's repeated every single Sheva Brachos. No matter how many Sheva Brachos you have, if it's 7, it's 7. But otherwise, it's repeated every single time. Asher bara sasoin v'simcha. Asher is a lashon of Ashrei. Lashon of Kodesh is perfect.
Simcha?
What?
Created Simcha?
Hashem Asher bara sasoin v'simcha. He created sasoin and simcha. Yes, it's a creation. It's literally part of the bria.
You feel it? Touch it?
You experience it. Yes, we're going to talk. Maybe even today we'll get into that. I was in my notes. I was hoping that we'll get more into that in Torah Chav Daled, but it really wouldn't be a stira to talk about it earlier because it will be preparation for Chav Daled too. But yes, it's actually in the bria. That was David HaMelech. He said, "Nasata simcha v'libi." Nasata is a lashon avar. You've already gifted. Nasan is a lashon of giving, and it's also a lashon of gifted, because everything Hashem gives us is a pure gift. He owes us nothing, so it's pure gift. Nasata simcha v'libi. You've already given happiness, all the reasons to be happy, v'libi, in my mind. Lev can translate as heart, but it doesn't start there. It starts over here. All machshavas start over here. If you look through, when you start noticing that and read Rav Nosson especially, there's so many places, let's say Nukutei Eitzes. I was just holding the place where he's really quoting from Torah Memtes in the first part of Likutei Moharan. Kol tikun ha'adam v'kilkulai hasv'shalom. Every tikkun and every kilkul, hakol talui b'machshava shebelev, is dependent on the tikkun and the kilkul. Only starts with what I'm thinking in my mind. Ki ikar hayitzarin hem hamachshavos v'hachmas shebelev. That's quoting directly from Memtes. Ki hamachshavos tovos hem yetzer tov. The yetzer tov is not some sort of evil inclination that's outside of me. It's inside me. Where is it inside me? In my machshava. Hamachshavos rais hem yetzer hara. So this kind of really spells it out. So once we know, that's what Lev really means. And the moment I think it translates into a feeling. The feeling of anything really begins over here. Everything. We talked about this last week with quoting from Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter, but Lev really means both, because the moment you think it, you feel it. You can only feel what you're thinking. It's impossible to feel anything else. One of the questions here was, how can you force someone to feel happy? And the answer is, you can't force someone to feel happy, but you can educate them that the thought of happiness creates the feeling of happiness.
The Yiddish Trachkeit v'Zang.
Yes, yeah, and there's a lot of emes to it. Even in the world of medicine today, they're finally coming around to the realization you cannot divorce the mind from the body, and because you can't, they've already split. The world of psychology, we talked a little bit about this last week, split our body into 3 parts. You've got a body, you've got emotions, and you've got the mind. You cannot divorce the 3 and only deal with the body. As Rabbeinu Zal will say in Torah Chav Daled, that all illnesses really are a kilkul of simcha. All illnesses really come from, there's something about my simcha that actually is a little bit twisted, and it's not 100% really saturated. Like Nachum Mishkamzu, he was astonishing that I think he was one of the first Breslov Hasidim, that it didn't matter what happened to him, he would just see the good, and he literally meant it. Gamzu l'taiva, he was 100% certain of it. Anyone standing there when he would say that, when Sisa wanted to kill him and all Klal Yisrael, the exact reverse of what he planned, which was to give this gift and appease the Caesar and diminish or completely mevatel the gzeros against us, all the decrees against us, it actually made it worse. He became so angry, he wanted to kill Nachum Gamzu with whoever came with him, and for sure take out this. So Nachum Gamzu was on the level where the simcha permeated everything. It was impossible for him to say, "Your Majesty can do wrong." Impossible. Your Majesty can do no wrong. And that's why he was sent, because he was melumad benissim. He didn't live in this world, he was living in Olam Haba in his mind. So That's why, interestingly, if you medaktik in the lashon, gam zu l'tova is the wrong lashon. It should be gam zeh l'tova, because tova is feminine, so zeh should have been the correct. But zu is very different. It means the same thing, but zu is masculine, and zayin and vav is 13 total, and 13 is the gematria of echad. It's gematria of ava. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch he couldn't see a difference between Baruch Mordechai and Aro Haman. As far as he was concerned, it made no difference. Yeah, Shem Echad Shmo Echad.
Din and Rachman, right?
Din and Rachamim. It's the same thing. Das, Chesed and Gevurah. So he Shmo Elokim. So this was what Nachum Mishkam. So he couldn't separate the two, because what you think is what your body feels, and so a person can literally control their body through their mind. I'm not going into it now, but there's a famous person, Wim Hof, I think his name is. He's capable through his mind of actually changing the temperature on his body, and in the same hand, you can take the temperature of one part of the hand, and he can actually control through his mind a colder part and the warmer part on the same Ava, which is astonishing. But it is a demonstration that when a person actually does practice, train his mind to be in control of his body, he can actually go into literally freezing water for quite a long time, and it wouldn't affect him, because he's telling his body what temperature to stay at. He controls the heart, which immediately controls the rest of the body. It happens to be that medical science is coming around. That if Chas v'Shalom, you should never know this, but if you know anyone who has to go to the ICU, there's a few things you should give them. Give them the really good blindfolds and noise-canceling earphones, and give them access to their favorite music. Music opens up your blood vessels up to 33% more than its usual aperture, which means that the flow of blood is going through the veins faster, because you're enjoying the music. It's exhilarating, and your body is responding to that. So this is what Rabbeinu Zal is basically telling us. The Simcha can reach a point where the mind and body is saturated with joy. So Sasain is the external Simcha, dancing, listening to music, clapping, smiling is an external Simcha. When the smile on the outside is a reflection of what we're thinking inside and feeling in our heart, then that is an external manifestation of Simcha. Simcha is always inside. Sasan is what's going on outside. That's why Simcha here can reach the point, as we quoted from Pei Aleph in Tinyana, that the legs jump and start dancing because of what the mind is saying to himself. So a person, when they're besimcha, they are meraked, they will dance, because that's an outer manifestation. But the dancing again and again can reach a point where a person really, even if he didn't feel besimcha over here and here, but because he's dancing and the music is his favorite music, then what ends up happening is he ends up actually putting aside the mara shchara, the black dot, the bitter view of the world, and those two is what brings to Atzvus, which is what's going on over here. Atzvus is daiga. Look at the Malbim. He talks that Atzvus is really the anxiety and fear and pachad. All those words, pachad, daiga, yira, they are all correlated, and they are all taking place over here. And Simcha has the power to not only take my mind away from that in the moment, but also have the power to absorb the marashkara and then turn it into Simcha, which I hope we're going to get actually to the nuts and bolts of how Rabbeinu Zal says we do that. Okay, so Simcha is the manufacturer's settings. We are born b'simcha. Have you ever seen a child come out? Oh no, here I go. Where would we here? Now he's crying because he didn't want to leave his mother's womb where the malach was teaching him. But as soon as within 6 weeks the baby is smiling in response to mummy's smiles. But actually, scientifically speaking, the claim is, this is the claim, that the reason why they don't smile before 6 weeks is because they haven't got control of their muscles. Now that's interesting, because that means, when do they really start smiling? On the outside,
They were smiling right away.
they're smiling right away. As soon as they're comforted and
Eternally.
yeah, Internally, because there's two types. There's Simcha internally, and then there's the outer manifestation, which is Sason. But the reason why they're smiling at 6 weeks is not because now they can see and they can see clearly. No, they were smiling from the first time they were smiled at, because Kamayim Panim Kain Leva Adam Ladam. When you're smiled at, your mind feels that joy that you recognize, and you're happy that I exist in your life. So Rabbeinu Zal is here to help us understand that in this mashal, you're dancing around and you see someone who's got marashkara, he's ba'atzvus, you force him to join in, and then he actually gets absorbed, kamayhem, literally like them. So now he tells us, but the nimshal is, simcha is that. That is what simcha is. Simcha is a mindset. So what's the marashkara? That's also a thought. So now, in the nimshal, how do we see that my mind is encircled with dancing? What does that mean? So, Lefi Ani Estati, but I'm going to try and bring you a proof from where Rabbeinu Zal talks about this elsewhere, is that really what it means is that more reasons we see to be happy, all the Nekudos Tovos, and the more we repeat them, it's because it's not enough to say Shilasani Goy once, Shani Miseri Yisrael. It's not enough to say thank you Hashem, I'm alive. Thank you that I was conceived. It's not enough to say it once. It's a mitzvah deoraisa. Every second that we're grateful, you get a mitzvah deoraisa. According to Sefer Haredim, we quoted it last week in Perek Tes. I think it's. I'm sorry, I didn't bring it. I meant to bring it, but I think it's in Ois Chaf Aleph. It's a mitzvah deoraita. Uzachata et kol kol haderech asher holicha Hashem Elokecha. It's a mitzvah to remember all the derech, all the journey that Hashem guided you, and it's referring to the 40 years, Arba'im Shana B'Midbar, but the Sefer Haredim brings that it's not only a mitzvah to remember everything Hashem did for our ancestors in taking us out of Mitzrayim and guiding us for 40 years, but it's a mitzvah if you just take the first words of the pasuk, Uzachatet Kol Haderech Asher Halichacha Hashem Elokecha, and it's referring to singular person, one person. Remember all the derech Hashem took you. It doesn't say Halichachem. It's you personally, from the time that you were born. That's when he actually starts. He says, from the time you were conceived till now, think of all the things that you're grateful for that Hashem did as pure chesed and toiv. So the mitzvah of simcha is an accumulation of how many reasons am I paying attention to that actually feeds my simcha account. The more thoughts a person has of that, the harder it is for the sitra achra, whether it's marashchara, yagran v'anacha, atzvas, all the negative names. It doesn't make a difference which ones they are. Now you have the power, based on how much simcha is taking place in the mind, to draw in and absorb and be mavatal the ra. Is this making sense? So I just want to share with you. We'll look at the words in Chaf Gimel. Ken yesh b'inyan hasimcha. You've got the place?
First paragraph.
Yeah. Adam sameach, because when a person is in the state of happiness, azay hamara shchara v'yisurin nistalkim min hatzad. The mara, bitterness, shara, black dots that he's paying too much attention to. V'yisurin. I think it's in this order because that's the order it comes in. I suffer because of what I'm thinking. I suffer because I'm looking at what I don't like about my life, about my wife, what I don't like in my career, what I don't like in my neighbors, or the guy who's davening next to me can't stop davening out loud, which Rabbeinu Zal says really my mind should be so into the davening that it shouldn't bother me. I shouldn't even notice. So really, it's Hashem talking to me through this guy who's annoying me, but really it's for me to try and focus more on my tefillas. So I'm suffering because of what I'm thinking. It's not his noise that's annoying me. It's not my wife's choice of words. It's not my husband's lack of kavod. It's my thinking about his lack of kavod. It's my thinking about what she unkindly said. It's my thinking about my career, my boss. It's all taken. I can only experience what I'm thinking. So Yisurin, which Rabbeinu Zal said in a few places, is really taking place in my mind, especially Torah Daled. Nistalkim min hatzad. Oh, they disappear to the side. And haven't disappeared completely. Aval mali yaseva. Now he's going into, but actually, that's only one benefit. But what I really want from you, says Rabbeinu Zal, is a much higher level. A mila yasera lit ametz I want you to encourage yourself when you looked at the word ametz means from within. You squeeze out of yourself. That's what ametz literally means. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Kave el Hashem, ve'ya'ametz libecha, and Hashem will squeeze your mind. Meaning, your mind is unlimited. You're Tselem Elokim. And Hashem will squeeze from you even more inner strength to pray again. And pray again. That's all. Rabbeinu Zal was all about tefillah. I need tefillah. Every solution to every problem is the same answer. Tefillah, hisbodedus. Every solution. I used to live in Gibraltar, and I didn't learn. I was there for a year and a bit. Helped start a kollel. I can say that honestly because there were 4 of us, and I was the only one who turned up. So I can say I actually did help. So it was interesting. I never really picked up the language, but there was one word I learned that actually I found was a solution to every problem. Mañana. And when the problem resurfaced, it was the same answer. Mañana. It was and it works. It really works. So people have no pressures for the simple reason that every problem can be pushed off. So Rabbeinu Zal wasn't exactly like that, but Lihit Ametz means Hashem will give you the strength to squeeze out of yourself, lirdoif, to actually chase Acha Hamara Shchoira Davka. Do not be afraid of your thoughts. That's really what he's saying. Hashem will give you the strength never to fear your thoughts, because that's the only fear we ever have. Really, we're only supposed to be fearing Hashem. But when we fear people, it's my thinking about them that I'm fearing, what they think of me, or that this person could actually harm me, or this competitor could actually harm me, or this person hurts me when I think of how disciplined they are with their body. I wish I could be so disciplined in the way they exercise or don't eat, what they shouldn't eat. It's all my thinking that is being roidef me. Like Rabbi Arush says, when we ask Hashem, please save us from the Yetzer Ra, he says, Ra is the oisius roidef atzmai. I am my only enemy. And it's my thinking that is doing that to me. And Rabbeinu Zal wants me to get out of that and recognize that it's only my thoughts. And if I know that, then when I see those thoughts, it's just an invitation for me to make sure that the dancing circle of good things that are taking place inside my mind, of what's good in my wife, and good in my life, and good in my children, and good in my grandchildren, and children-in-law, and whoever it is, and mechutanim, whichever stage we are in our lives, my neighbors, my friends, whatever good I can keep finding and add on, and add on, and add on, and stay focused on that. It's not a denial of reality, it's actually reality, because the default of Hashem's manufacturing settings is Simcha is a reality. Asher bara sasoin v'simcha. He created us with the ability of sason, which means we can ignite from the outside in, because sason is only an external. This is something Rabbeinu Zal says in Sisa and Ayin Dalet. I'll quote it in a few moments, and it's a uniting theme in a Rishon in Sefer HaChinuch. You see that constantly, where he's bringing out that the chitzonius of our behavior, the mitzvahs we do, but chitzonius actually has an effect on the panim, and that's part of the, if you want to call it, the design of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He designed us with the ability that we can do something outwardly without feeling that we're in it. We can pretend to be happy and not feel happy. But what ends up happening by consistently doing that, we can actually turn the inside into simcha. So Mesilas Yesharim talks about that. I'll share in a few moments. But in Ayin Dalet, in Sikha Saran, he tells us, when a person's davening, sometimes he should actually pretend he's angry. It doesn't mean angry because he's bekas. He's angry, as Chazal tell us, that when I've got that I should anger my good thinking against my bad thinking. And tefillah is the one place where we get the most parachuting of Yetzer Hara and Hihurim and crazy thoughts entering my mind. So that's the place that this battle takes place. And when we get upset with the Yetzer Hara, then we can be zeicher that later we actually come to a burning Ava in tefillah. v'yitpalel b'tlavus gadol. But it starts with pretending that I'm besimcha and fighting against the Yetzer Hara. Comes along, Rabbeinu Zal, and says, a person should force himself to be happy in every way he can. In order to be zoicha to simcha. Especially davening, because this is my personal appointment with the King of Kings. Wow, that's a great opportunity. So for sure I should be simcha. As he's quoting from the pasuk, which is the whole of Azamara, Reish Pei Beis. If sometimes it comes, I'm so confused, I cannot bring myself to simcha. The answer is fake it till you make it. The answer is you should pretend to be happy until you actually feel it. So you see that this is the way Hashem wired us. We got sason on the outside, simcha on the inside. Asher bara, and Asher is a loshon of Ashrei. This is a perfect language. Rashi brings that in Perek Dala Pasuk Chav Beis in Vayikra, where it's talking there about a Nasi, Asher, Hata, that did a terrible mistake in causing Klal Yisrael to actually maybe even serve Avodah Zarah. So Asher is Ashrei, happy is the generation who has a Nasi who can be moida al ha'emes on the mistake that he made. So Lashon Ashrei it's an amazing insight. Asher Kiddishanu, Hashem happily was mavdil us. That's what Kiddush means. He is mavdil us from all the nations, through his mitzvahs. It's a happiness that Hashem has. Asher Yatsa es Adam b'chokhmah. Hashem happily designed man with incredible wisdom. So Asher Yatsa takes on a whole new meaning just from that one word. So comes along Rabbeinu Zal, basically is telling us, fake it till you make it. Pretend that you're happy even if you're not. You don't really feel it, you don't really think it. This is Rav Nosson. So Rav Nosson concludes, this is an extremely good advice. In all areas of Kedusha, at least pretend. Then a person will really be zoich to it in the end. Ve'heven me'od. Whenever he says ve'heven me'od, that means there's something to unpack here. So on a pshat level, just take it for the words. Pretend you love her. Pretend you love this kid who's now you know why I'm bald. Just pretend until it becomes part of you. And if it's not, pretend more. Keep pretending. Now I want to share with you a similar thing that Mesilas Yesharim says. It's right at end of Perek Zion. The reason why I tell you where it is because the Vilna Gaon made the claim. He said if he lived in the time of the Mesilas Yesharim, he would have walked by foot. Not there weren't that many ways to get there. There were no trains, but he could have gone by carriage. He would walk by foot from Vilna to Italy to sit and learn by the feet of the Mesilas Yesharim. And as you know, he died 39 years old. Very similar age as the Arizal and of course Rabbeinu Zal. So the Vilna Gaon said that he couldn't find one extra word in the first 8 prakim. So that's why I'm saying, besides knowing where the makor for this is, there's not a single extra word. And that's very important to know, because when we read the words of the Mesilas Yesharim, you'll see how Rabbeinu Zal was not giving an opinion. He's telling you the reality of Das Elokim. This is God's mindset. This is a dictionary in Hashem's mind. Simcha is a metzius. That's the reality. Yush is not a metzius. It's an innocent misunderstanding. I'm just focused on Mara and Shcheira, and that leads me to Atzvus and Has v'Shalom to Yush. But Ein Shum Yush Ba'olam Klal is literally the reality. So, and how far am I away from letting go of the Yush or the Atzvus or the Mara Shcheira? How far am I? So Rabbeinu Zal tells us, you cannot have 2 thoughts simultaneously. It's impossible. So that means, how long is the life of a thought? And the answer is, as long as I think it. So how far are you away from the next thought? 1 thought away. And this is maybe one of the greatest limudim of Rabbeinu Zal, that we have the incredible power of Bechira to choose a different thought. And with it, we choose a different feeling. And if we do that frequently, consistently, eventually, constantly, it's possible to be B'simcha Tamid. Or at least, if I do get distracted by the crazy things that turn up in my life, but we keep reminding ourselves, Hashem is talking to me through this person, through this matzav, through this circumstance, through this horrible nisayon. Hashem's talking to me. What does He want from me? So Hashem gave Rabbeinu Zal all the answers. Torah Yud, how do we mamtik dinim? Clap and dance. You've got to be joking. What about screaming, crying with Tehillim? That was a machlokes between Mordechai and Esther. She was sending him clothes to get dressed because she said that's not how to be mamtik the dinim. You got to do it b'simcha, not with sackcloth and crying. And Mordechai held that you got to start off that way and then turn to simcha. So, but she was a huge naviya. It wasn't stum. She didn't like the fact that her husband or uncle was not dressed, covered. She was completely on the mark. This is a ace Sarah LeYaakov, and if we want Hashem's Yeshua, it's got to be through Simcha. So comes along the Ramchal right at the end of Perek Zayin, and he's talking about when the Chitzonius is Me'ora the Pnimius. Eitza Toivahi. This is a good advice. She is daris b'rtsoinai, that you arouse with your will kadesh mashach mizeh, in order that you will then be drawing with it, shetivaled boya chemda b'teva, that you will give birth to the chemda. The context of this is talking about a deep craving for Kodesh Baruch Hu. So chemda means it's a type of, sometimes it's translated as jealousy, but it means you want that item so badly you'll pay any price for it. That's what it really means. Chemda is you can't get out of your mind. So sorry.
Chemdas Hayomim.
Chemdas Hayomim. What do you mean by that?
We say in this means Chemdas Hayomim.
Right.
I say Keruso.
Right. So this is
the Chem. Yeah.
Right. So you pay any money for to make Shabbos a kovedik and an oinig. Get your money back anyway. So there's a chemda b'teva to be close to Hashem, because the real you is not your body. The real you is your mind, and the real mind is your neshama. Rav Nassim talks about that frequently. Ki hatnuah hachitzoina, the outside movement, me'oreres hapnimis. That is what arouses the inside. Ubevadai, and it's with certainty, sheyota masura b'yadai, that a person has more easily in his hand hachitzoina mehapnimius. He can more easily dance outwardly, smile outwardly, laugh outwardly, sing outwardly. Those are all outward manifestations of simcha. They might be actually coming from simcha, but if I'm not coming from, because I am sad, I am b'marash chora, but by singing and dancing, smiling, laughing, you can actually arouse the inside. If you use that which you can reach, it's in your hand, you will then be able to draw what you don't have immediate access to. And here's the lashon: Ki tivaled by hasimcha hapnimis. Tivale means you will give birth to the inner simcha. You can't give birth to something that's not inside you. So when an Isha gives birth, it's because there's a baby that's about to be born. So it's an amazing lashon. Every human being is pregnant with simcha. It's astonishing. It's always there. Now how do I get it out? You don't have to go through contractions. Dance, sing, listen to your favorite music. Because you want this to be manifest. Do the outer manifestations of joy, chemda, kisufim, desire for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and guess what happens next? The mind clicks in to reality, which is simcha, is already there. So that's, I think, helping us understand that when a person in the marshal is dancing, what can happen next is that he reaches a point of simcha that why shouldn't Yenim enjoy the simcha? It's a beautiful world, it's a beautiful life, but he's down. Let me pull him in. It's a little bit like Rav Baruka in Tainus. I think is it Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, I think it is. When he's going through the shuk with Eliyahu Navi, no less, and asks, "Is there anyone here who's a bar olam haba?" So at first he says no, and then suddenly he says, "Oh look, do you see those two men? They are bar olam haba, bnei olam haba." So he goes over to them, asks them, "What do you do? Ma'avdayu? What are you involved with?" So they say, "Badchanim anachnu. We are badchanim." So Rashi famously tells us, "Smeichim u'mesamchim bnei adam." But it starts off, they themselves are happy that they can then go and help other people be happy. So the Gemara says, they answered, there's two types of people that we help. Those who are ba'atzvus, and those who are, what was the second one? I've forgotten already. Sorry. Memory's not as sharp as it used to be. Find me a Gemara Tainus. I think it's Chaf Aleph. It's either Amud Aleph or Amud Beis. There's two types of people, but I think that helps us maybe understand. We're going to see. Oh, the other ones. If two people are b'machlokes with each other, so you got one ba'atzvus, so they would pull him out with a mili b'dicha, and the second one. Thank you very much. This is not it. Is it Gimel? I apologize.
We'll look it up later.
What? Okay.
We can look it up later.
So those are the two types of people. They're either someone who's ba'atzvus, says Rashi, or there's the Gemara says that, or they have a sichsuch between them, and they bring them to shalom, and Rashi says they bring them to shalom by joking around. It's amazing. It's an astonishing thought that the milim b'dicha can lighten a person to the point where their mind gets freed to then make shalom. A little bit like Rabbeinu Zal says in Torah Yud in Tinyana that Simcha is olam acherus. That shechora, mara shechora and atzvus, my mind gets mentumtum, which means clogged. That's what it literally means, blocked. Like Rashi tells us, timtum alev is a blocked mind. What am I blocked from? I'm blocked from seeing the Metzias, Hashem's chesed, Hashem's love, which is Tov. I can't see the Tov. I'm so blocked. I can't see the Tov in the people that I'm upset with, and so I'm not free. And so what will free me? And the answer is Simcha. Simcha will free me. What is Simcha? To pay attention to the good. It's not complicated. That's what I love about it. I don't have to be a London to pull out Rabbeinu. I just have to take the language seriously, and it will just open up worlds to us. So I apologize for not checking that place exactly where it was before. So I'll look it up later. So moving along, the Yisurim, Marash Chora, the Yisurim Mistalkin Minatzad. They literally move to the side. Mistalkin is also Lashon as histalic, which means actually to die. Aval Mala Yisrael it Amitz Lirdoif Achal Marash Chora Davka. Go after it, and you can only do that if you've got the courage. It amitz means the courage, and that's an internal courage that you're no longer in fear of your thoughts. If we would stop fearing our thoughts, it would open up to Olam Achirus, the world of freedom, because thoughts that are negative, the Marash Chora, which is the Yetzer Hara, Yagoin, all of this is what is actually blocking my mind from paying attention to Hashem's constant tov in my life. And so I can intellectually know it, but it doesn't go from here to here. That's why Rabbeinu Zal, when he says in Perek Daled in Parshas Veischanam, we say every day at the end of davening, V'yadad hayom hashavois el levavecha. You shall know and bring it into your thoughts. Because the moment you bring it to your thoughts, your heart will feel it. And what is that? Shakadosh Baruch Hu, he is Elokim Bashamayim Mima'al. He's the only power of all powers above. The Ala Haaretz Mitachat. Actually, that would, if the pasuk stopped there, we would not have had any questions. Makes sense. Stop there, because we said Mima'al from your Elokim Bashamayim Mima'al. The Ala Haaretz Mitachas. But no, the pasuk ends off two more words. Ein Oid. Because we're in Olam HaSheker. And it could be so distracting. It is so distracting. Every single thing that distracts me from Chayrus, from freedom, and the ultimate freedom is Simcha. Because now I'm freed, liberated from the thoughts that pull me down. The thoughts that actually make me think that this sichsuch is real, this machlokes is real. It's not real. It's all an invitation for me to not get involved with machlokes. Especially if it's between tzaddikim, they are being mamtik dinim with their machlokes. It's none of my business. Don't put my head in between them. Just have emunah shalema in every single tzaddik. Like Rabbeinu Zal says, a tree might have a broken root and a broken branch. There might be some rot on a part of the tree, and the bark might be peeling in another area. Another part of the tree could be infested, and it's still called a tree. And then Rabbeinu Zal turns it on. A tzaddik you can find faults, but doesn't mean he's not a tzaddik. And then he says, and if you could have a whole orchard or forest of trees, and every single one you can find fault with, but they're still trees and it's still a forest. The tzibur is tzaddikim Beinyan. Everyone counts, and just because you find faults, that doesn't pass them up. So the ikka is Olam HaChayrus is being liberated from the thoughts of Mara Shchera that are blocking me from the reality. And what's the reality? Simcha. Simcha are God's manufacturer settings. It's the default. Once we're dancing with Simcha in our mind, so to speak, with the thoughts of the good that's in my life. Shlos ani goy. I'm Zera Yisrael. I was conceived. That's huge. Ask a gynecologist, the chances of being conceived. It's one in millions. So you won the lottery just by conception. I was not an AFL. I wasn't aborted. I wasn't stillborn, as you brought out last. We're born a Jew. We won all these lotteries. But if I don't say it, I'm not going to feel it. But at least say it. And because Chazal knew that we were losing the discipline of Hispaidus, which was the original Tefillah Deoraisa, you open your mouth any time, any day. No barriers, only a bathroom and unclean place. Otherwise, you can talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu anywhere, anytime. So we were losing that discipline. So they were kaveya that every morning I go through a checklist. Shlos ani goy, shlos ani aved. I've got 9 more mitzvahs than an isha. Shlos ani isha. I've got tefillin, tefillin shalosh, tefillin shalyat, kriyat shema, shacharis mariv. I've got tzitzis. I've got lulav, sukkah. Oh, Shasali call Sarki. Thank you for my shoes. I've got all my needs are taken care of. Sefer Charedim, I think it is, that brings. Where do you see there's a mitzvah to bless Hashem for Yisurin? He says Shasali call Sarki. That everything that I go through that's not good in my life apparently is actually the kol is for all my needs. This is a perfect tikkun for me. And therefore, that bracha is chal on Yisurin too. Even though we don't have a specific, but it's a kolel bracha. Thank you, Hashem Pokiach Ivrim. Even the father of evil, Lucian, his name was Darwin. Even he, when he looked at the eye, this is right at the end of his Kuntras Lahavdil of Origin of Species, he actually admits that when he thinks about the complication of the eye can see over 4 million different color shades. We don't even have names for more than maybe 20 different colors. But he's got your eye is so complex of what it's able to take in as an image, and then how the brain connected to the eye is able to interpret what you see. He said when he looked at that, he has the chills that his theory has no chance. That's besides his own admission. But today, I hope you don't mind me just saying this because it's one of the biggest hoax in history, which is because this is like trying to kill Simcha in the world. How do you kill Simcha? Take HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of the equation, and now there's no one to turn to. So one of the ways Darwin did that is to say we all come from animals or from an amoeba, from one cell. But it's so ridiculous because most of his proof, listen to this, was that in his time, it's over 130 years ago, the microscope was able to magnify a cell by 300 times its size. Under that magnification, you will see complete chaos. You see the particles of the cell all over the place, no apparent order whatsoever. Well, that was what available to science then. Today, we've got atomic microscopes that can multiply the magnitude of a cell by 1,000 million times. So that's already 1 billion times its original size. So in his book, the book is called A Theory in Chaos, in reference to evolution. Got his name. So he brings in chapter 14 there, he brings that today you can look at a cell of a magnitude of 1,000 million times, 1 billion times. He said if you were to print out what you can see under that magnitude, you would need enough paper to cover the entire Manhattan. What you would then see in this cell is millions, not a million, millions of openings. And from all different parts of the body, this cell is receiving nutrition, and it's specific to every single opening what type of nutrition is going in: amino acids, proteins, enzymes, carbohydrates, oxygen, red blood cells, white blood, and all of this is going into this one cell that he then explains is, you need to look at the size of Manhattan. It's so complex that every single entrance is going to a specific part of the cell, where that part of the cell knows how to turn that particle into energy, and then expel it, because there are parts of the cell that gets expelled which is not nutritious. Most of the food we're eating, I think there's more nutrition in the packaging of half the food we eat, but a lot of that has to be expelled. And the body is so brilliant in its design because of its divine designer in the design of the body. So that alone would be enough to be Simcha all day. Umafli lasos. Because if Hashem said, I'm going to close one vein or one capillary or one cell, most of life would be over. It's the beginning of disease or worse. So comes along an aneurysm, has v'shalom, comes along Ashayatza, that alone is enough to be B'simcha. Rav Nosson once asked Rabbeinu Zal, what can I do to be mechabed my mother who just passed away? I think it was the Shloshim. What can I do to have a leilu nishmasa? He said, say Ashayatza b'kavana. So you think, I'll take on all Mishnayos. Now, everything we do changes the Bria. And one Ashayatza is a huge schus and covered to our parents in this world and in the next. So going back to our point is that if Simcha is the default, the more reasons we find to be B'Simcha, the more it becomes a complete reality, the more we are able to have the inner strength to be fearless of a thought of Mara Shchera that comes into our mind and say, I'm not scared of you, come join me into my Simcha. And in this sense, what Rabbeinu Zal the Lashon is going to use is we mahapech, we turn it around. Turn it around means it's no longer atzvus, Mara Shchera, daiga, pachad, yira, is part of the Simcha. So like we said, if it was 10 parts atzvus, now it's 10 parts added to the Simcha. If it's 1,000 parts atzvus, it's 1,000 parts added to Simcha. And when Rabbeinu Zal says there's no yush because there's such a thing as everything being turned around l'tov, like he quotes from Gemara in Yuma, is it Pei Ches, I think it is, where it talks about if a person does teshuva miyira, then it brings the aveira to a zero. It's now like a shogeg, it wasn't bemazed. But if he does the same teshuva me'ava, he turns the same aveira into a schus. So if it was on a minus 10 side of the scale, that aveira, now it becomes a plus 10. If it was 1,000 minus, now it's a plus 1,000. And that's why it's possible for someone who's so far away from Yiddishkeit, like Yisro, who tried out every Avodah Zarah, he was the king of Avodah Zarah, he turned himself around and became a ger. That's in Torah 10, in the first part of Likutei Moharan, where Rabbeinu Zal is basically sharing with us that the highest level possible of covered to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is when people extremely far from Hashem or even Goyim convert. Because what it's saying is, and this is what Moshe Rabbeinu's avodah was, to go to the lowest of the low, bring them all the Sisa Kedoshim from whoever, however low they are, and show them you are still part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you can also be close to Hashem. The whole world can be close to Hashem. So this is part of what Rabbeinu Zal is now telling us. We can saturate our mind with thoughts that are so focused on Simcha that when I do get that Marash Chora, and the Marash Chora is when, as long as you're in Olam Hazeh, it's impossible to avoid it. I'm going to get hit on a daily basis, and the more I try to hold on to the Simcha, then Hashem has to try me. He has to. So in Olam HaNisayon, it's going to continue. But the biggest mile of all is not to be afraid of it, to the point where we actually are roidef, actually chase, oh please come, welcome, and it runs away, which we'll see at the end of the Torah. There's two types of Marash Chora, two types of Sitra Achra, and one is kind of more extrinsic outside, and one's more intrinsic, and to be unafraid of bringing it all in, because all the Nitzosos that are there are really there for us to be matakin. And what's the greatest tikkun? That's Simcha. So let's make a little bit more progress. Any questions, comments, criticism? Kederech haba l'teicha simcha, like in the same way that a person enters the simcha, she'az migoydel hasimcha ve'ahedva, because of the tremendous, and you can say this as an amount, or if you really want to translate goydel as independent, that the simcha becomes independent. That's extraordinary. Do you remember we touched on the word gadol once? Gadol really means, gadol in Lashon Kodesh is referring to an adult. The greatness of a gadol is that an adult is that he's independent. The greatest independence is that the mind is not dependent on circumstances. So that the greatest simcha would be, it's not dependent on circumstances. So you could have a Nachamish Gamzu who actually davened to Hashem that he should lose the power of all his limbs, and the only part of him that was actually functioning was his mind. And when his Talmidim saw him that way, with a famous story about the ani that he delayed only for a few seconds to help him, the poor ani died of starvation, and he took upon himself to be a quadriplegic. And in that he was happy. So how did I come to this? Because his simcha was not dependent on his body. His simcha was dependent on his mind. A little bit like L'havdil Christopher Reeve, who I met about 18 years ago. Famous, what's his name? Superman. Thank you. So I met him. It was a very, very interesting occasion. It was 4 years after his accident. He was in a horse riding accident. Superman, reduced to a quadriplegic. He woke up 3 months after a coma, completely paralyzed from his neck down. The only two parts of his entire body that moved were his eyes and his mouth. And he's brought onto the stage on the platform, and the first words that came out of his mouth it has the whole apparatus attached to his chest to artificially keep his lungs and heart going, because if he would be unplugged, then he was on a life support machine. And what was interesting, he said the first words that came out of his mouth were, "I've never been more happy in my life than since my accident." And you're thinking, whoa, look, he's a good actor, but I mean, come on. You're a quadriplegic, for heaven's sake. The only part of your body that works are your eyes and your mouth. Nothing moved. He even admitted the first 4 years that he was in depression. He wanted to commit suicide and he couldn't. He would actually sit there and said, "Someone, please pull the plug. Please, someone. Is anyone there? Pull the plug." The poor guy couldn't commit suicide. I mean, that's pretty bad. So he said, I discovered the real me is not my body. He said, the real me is not all the money I have. He said, the tens of millions of dollars in my bank account. He said, the real me is not all the homes I own. He even added, the real me is not all the fan mail that he's received, half a million letters in the last 4 years. He said, the real me, and he started giving examples of chesed that he does with others, and especially recognizing his wife who was so dedicated to him. She took care of him, despite the fact that he was a man who could not be a husband in any way. He was more of a liability than an asset. it took her 2 hours with help to dress him every morning. Some ladies take that amount of time on their own anyway, but it took 2 hours. And he said something astonishing. He said, when he once asked his wife, "Why do you still love me?" And her answer was poshut, but so profound, he wrote an autobiography based on her answer. She answered him, "I love you because you're still you." And he wrote a book called Still Me. It was a pun on the fact that he couldn't move. But he was giving examples that when he realized, after years of being in depression, that all he was doing was destroying his mind. He was in prison. His body was like a prison. He was complete. But the worst part of it is that he was stuck in negative thinking. Why me? Until he realized, one second, if I don't turn around myself, I'm basically going to deteriorate. And that's when he started realizing, my wife's always smiling at me, and he smiles back. Why is she smiling? Because she still loves me. That's a reason to be happy. And then he put in 120 million, was it 110, something like that, $1 million into a foundation that raises money and produces income to support scientists and doctors who are doing research into spinal injuries. And then he would go around on his wheelchair to rehabs and hospitals, and he would speak to teenagers who are quadriplegics. And this is Superman, the icon of success in the American dream, reduced to a quadriplegic, going to teenagers and showing them the research that he's funding, and he got other actors, actresses to fund as well, showing them that in their lifetime they're going to be able to use their limbs again. And that's actually happening today with AI, but I'm not going to go into it now. And it's coming out of Israel. And Israel, they've figured out how to put in an implant over here that the mind would control the prosthetic limbs that are added to your body. So it's an astonishing thing that people could be able to move their limbs that they don't have, and it's all because the mind's able to be connected. I'm not going into that now because but there is so much to unpack in terms of understanding that what Rabbeinu Zal is telling us is that Simcha is a Metzius. And if someone who is not a Superman, but I think he died a superhuman being, to have come to that conclusion, can come to that on his own, that means the greatest godless of Simcha is to be independently happy no matter what's going on in the family, extended family, in one's health, in one's community, globally. It makes no difference. That's ultimately the greatest Simcha. So I think that might be in the word. As migoidel hasimcha, because the word gadol, we said, is gimel, giving. Goimel is giving. Dal, the last two letters, is the poor man. When you give to the poor man, so he's independent, he can give to himself. That's the greatest godless. So migoidel hasimcha ve'achedva. Chedva is a very special lashon. It's also a lashon of simcha, but it's referring to chad, when it's all together as one. Which maybe one day we'll see it in Torah Lamed Gimel and Lamed Dalet, also in Tinyana, just a few pages along, talks about when Yisro came out of Mitzrayim and he heard about Kriyas Yamsuf, his basa became chedudim, which is a lashon of simcha. And Rabbeinu Zal points out there was also a lashon of worry, atzvus, because of the fact that his body came from Zera Goy, and now he's converting, but his body is not really from Kedusha. So it's interesting that the word Chedva over there is where you are meyached, all the simcha to one. So in Lamed Gimel he talks about being at a chasna, and some people are enjoying the chasna, some people are not, they're jealous. Some people are paying attention to the music and they love the music. Others are there for the food. Others are there, the mechutanim, they're just so happy to have married into this family, and they're not thinking about the food and the music. They're just so happy because their kid is being married off, etc. So it said it's impossible for us to really pay attention to the whole simcha. But there is a way, because there's every simcha has an avelus in the end. Everyone's going to die. But if you look at the soif shel soif, that after we die we're going to come back. And when we come back, bila mavis lanetzach, death will be swallowed forever. So in that sense, the bigger simcha, which he claims we are capable of even in this lifetime, is to see that everything is perfect all the time. So that's really what Rabbeinu Zal is, I think, telling us to aim for when we run after the Marash Chora, the moment we know it exists, and pull it in, because we're unafraid of the negative thoughts. We're unafraid of the bully thoughts that I have in my mind. I'll never be a Talmud Chacham. I'll never be your Yodea Sefer. I'll never be a good father. I'll never be a good husband. And I give up on myself. No. The Yetzer Ra is Roidef Asma. Ra is Roidef Asma. I'm bullying myself. Get it out of here. How do you get it out of here? Bring it into the Simcha. Don't be afraid of it. Don't push it away. Bring it in. Be unafraid. That's astonishing. So that's really what I think Rabbeinu Zal is asking us to go for. Migoidel hasimcha v'chedva mehapech kol hadaigas ve'atzvus ve'amara shchayra shalai v'simcha. This simcha is so independent, it's so miyachid everything that he could be mehapech all daigas. Daigas is any type of worry. Radak says daiga is a lashon of pachad and yira. It's all under this word, daiga. Today it's an industry. Anxiety is an industry. And Rabbeinu Zal is telling us, don't need therapy, don't need medication. You need to self-heal. And self-heal is simcha. Look at the good that's already in your life. And that's how we can turn it around to simcha. We can turn it mahapech kol daigas, atzvus, all depression, all types of worry, the amara, shchira, and bitterness, and looking at the black that I have in me, that's part of me. It's not really in me. Shalai, it belongs to me, but it's not in me. Le simcha. Turn it around to simcha. So I'll close what we mentioned, I think last week, the pasuk from Mishlei, Parakut Beis, pasuk Kafei, Daika Belevi Yashchina. V'dava Tov Yisamchina. One good thing, you can turn it into simcha. And that's an astonishing thought that Rabbeinu Zal reveals to us. Just look for one good nakuda. One good nakuda. And he always gives us Zer Yisrael, Shelo Asani Goy, because we had nothing to do with that. That's pure chesed on Hashem's part. So there's nothing I can find wrong with that, because Hashem chose that I should be a Jew. Anything else, I can say, yeah, I was nice to my wife, but, and then I'll think of the kavanas I had, and then I sabotage my own nakuda tova. But Rabbeinu Zal says, no, count the good. Because one davar tov, yisamchena, can turn the daiga into happiness. And that is what we're talking about. Don't be afraid, and don't think it's complicated, and don't think it's a lifetime career. Happiness is a lifetime career, but it's all around us all the time. It's never too late to turn around whatever we're going through and say, Rebbeinu Shalom, what's good about this? What else is good about this? So I'm going to close on this example. When a person is mahapech, yisurin, or daiga, atzvas, mara, shchera, yagon, anacha, basically the whole vocabulary associated to negativity, when we find something good about what we're going through that brings simcha, what mitzvahs do we get? Do we get the mitzvah of emunah in Hashem?
Yes.
Do we get the mitzvah of einod milvado, which is the mitzvah of deraisa, lo yeh lecha elohim acherim al panai, don't have any other powers in front of my faces? That's the correct translation. Panai means my faces, referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hashgacha. Hashem's hashgacha is teva, and it's just faces, a facade on the outside. Behind it, Hashem's hiding behind everything. But so when you take anacha or yagoin atzvus and you turn it into simcha, you get the mitzvah of emunah. That's not small. You get the mitzvah of einod milvado. You get the mitzvah of any others? Tamim tiyem Hashem Elokecha. Do you get that?
Schartus kol haderech, as you mentioned. Schartus kol haderech.
You get the mitzvah of gratitude, the mitzvah deraisa of v'zachartet kol haderech asher haliach Hashem Elokecha. What else do you get? So that's 4 so far. Do you get the mitzvah of Ahavas Hashem? Do you get the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael? If the person that is annoying you, you turn it into a simcha. We can go on and on. I'm going to give you a list of nearly 80 mitzvahs that we get deraisa when we turn Yisurin into simcha. Because that can actually help leverage that even if I only know intellectually that simcha is the reality, and that's the default, and those are the manufacturer settings, because natata simcha, you've already given me all the reasons to be happy, even though I know that, but I don't always live that in the moment that I bang my car, or scratch the car, or I got a ticket for speeding, and in that moment I'm whatever it is, it really makes no difference. But just knowing that Rabbeinu Zal is telling us that Simcha is Olam HaChirus, and in that, what's the Chirus? That we are getting so many mitzvahs in one mahapech, one turnaround, and in that moment, when we do it B'Simcha, how much is Simcha worth? When you're doing a mitzvah B'Simcha, how much more is it worth than a regular mitzvah?
More. There's a lot more. There's a lot more mitzvahs.
There's a lot more mitzvahs. So in Orchot Tzadikim, Shah Simcha, he says it's 1,000 yados. If you do a mitzvah B'Simcha, it's worth 1,000 times more than a regular mitzvah. Whoa! And what happens if you do the mitzvah and it's really hard? But you still do it. Oh, mitzvah achas b'tza'ah, it's hard, it's difficult. It's really hard to keep quiet when I get that insult. You know, when my wife puts me down. They say that if you're in a forest alone and your wife is not there, and you speak something out, are you still wrong? So, and when you're quiet, the ikka teshuva is shtika. When we're quiet, and it's not easy. Oh, so it comes on Avos Reb Nasan. Mitzvah achas b'tzah is mutav memeh shaloi b'tzah, is worth 100 mitzvahs that come without difficulty. But if you do it with Simcha, that's 100 times 1,000. Oh. And when you do a mitzvah on Shabbos, it's 1,000 times more than a regular mitzvah. That's what Ben Ish Chai says. So you got 100,000 times 1,000, and you keep on adding. There's different levels, and you start realizing more and more. Oh my gosh! By taking Yisurin and turning it around, you are mamtik dimnim, not just for yourself, for the whole world. We're changing the whole world. That's really Torah Yud in the first chilek. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is inviting me, and because He loves me, guess what? Every time I get angry with the same person, guess what Hashem does? Ein shum yush ba'olam klal applies to Him too. He doesn't give up on me. He sends me the same person another time, or a different person to insult me in a different way, and now He's inviting me to figure out that when I turn myself around, that's when I can actually experience the real Simcha, that there is no Ra. Ada ein davar Ra. We're still in Shushan Purim, literally, and with that schus, we should be zoicha that we'll draw out the treasures that Rabbeinu Zal has put inside his beautiful Torahs, especially when it comes to Simcha, because there's no mitzvah that's probably greater than Simcha, to be happy that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made us a year and gave us the possibility of fulfilling His mitzvahs, and even more so that we know of Rabbeinu Zal, and that we're Baruch Hashem, we're trying to be makarev ourselves to Rabbeinu Zal through learning his eitzes and trying to be makayim them, and that's chus we should be zoicha to see come Mashiach Meinu b'simcha. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Wow.
Baruch Tiyeh.
We know that negativity is normal. Isn't that what the Rebbe is teaching us?
So I think what Rabbeinu Zal wants us to know is that the negativity I'm experiencing is what I'm thinking. Because he gives us the mashal of Rikudim and says it the nimshal, but you've got to figure out, okay, so what is the nimshal? There are thoughts that are circling around my mind. You can only have one thought at a time. But what is my mind mostly thinking? Am I absorbed too much in what's not going right in my business, in my family? And because that's unending. It's not going to stop. It's like you go. You get off a plane and you go to the carousel and you're waiting for your luggage, right? So lots of pieces of luggage are going around and around. Why don't you open up each one to see what's inside? It's not mine. Duh. No, but why not just open it up and analyze? Oh, this doesn't fit me. I don't like this color taste, but it's not yours. Why would you try to be besimcha in someone else's chelik? It's impossible. So comes along HaKadosh Baruch Hu and tells us your mind is like a carousel. You got thoughts circling all the time. Which one should you unpack? Oh, this atzvus over here. No, I'm upset with this person because it's not the first time they've spoken like this. And I thought I forgave them so many times, but now they started up again. And it's not the second or third time. I can't have anything to do with this person. They are toxic for me. I've got to speak to my therapist about this. It's going to cost me thousands. I just got to get this off my chest. And before you know it, I'm unpacking someone else's garbage. Why am I unpacking their what do you call it? Not garbage, baggage. Why am I unpacking their baggage? It's not mine. Which thoughts am I supposed to have? Oh, emunah, simcha, avas Yisrael, avas Hashem, simcha sachayim. Oh, ein oid milvadai. What about netira? Don't go there. Lo tikkun v'lo titar. The Torah is telling me what to think and what not to think. So once I know that what I'm down on is perfectly natural, it's true, it's thought. And what Hashem, in His love for us, Rav Nassim talks about this in Likutei Eitzos, especially under Hiurim, Machshavas and Hiurim, that when I get thoughts of bad thoughts, not good thoughts, it's Hashem sending them to me, inviting me to be matakin them. How do you matakin them? One way is ignore them. Don't take them seriously. That's Ayin Beis and in Reish Lamed Gimel talks about ignore the thoughts. Don't get into the ring and fight them. But what we're learning in Chaf Gimel is way beyond that. It's saying don't be afraid of the negative thoughts. The tikkun is to bring it into the happy thoughts. But then the din kadima is that I've got enough happy thoughts swirling in my mind, and there's a simcha that comes with it that I can bring in without the Marash Chora actually taking over. And the third level, which is what he's bringing in Chaf Gimel, is actually not only not be afraid of them, chase them. Almost be mispoinen, have hispoitus. Where do I remember I was hurt the most? By whom? And then go there and say, what was good about that? What was a blessing about that? Because there's always something good, and the good, according to Rebbeinu Zal, can be so good that it will literally drown out and bottle mevatel completely the asvus. So that when that thought comes back again, because you can't stop the pop-ups of the memory, but you've got a different mindset of what was good about it, that the Dava Toiv Yisamchena, Shlomo Melech, Hacham Mikol Adam, one good word, one good thought about what's good about what I've been through, Yisamchena will turn the daiga into Simcha. That's what we're talking about. And therefore, a person could reach a point. You meet people like Rabbi Rush, Yaakov Meir Shechter, our real tzaddikim and gedolim. You see, they live a life of no daiga. They're not. If they pretend, but they're beyond that because they can only see the good that Hashem gives us. The Baal Shem HaKadosh, I think he was blind to any ra. The light of shining neshama of every single Jew was so great that no matter how schlecht he was, how low or has v'shalom, how many averos he did, the shine of that person's neshama was so bright that it blinded, so to speak, the Baal Shem from seeing the Ra, and therefore he only related to that person's neshama. The person picked up on it, and he was able to turn people around. He was the tzaddik amos of the generation, no question about it. And so those are the tzaddikim that have worked on, I think, Chaf Gimel, so to speak, that now they're not afraid of any Ra. Just turn it into good, because it's good anyway. I'm sorry, it's a long answer.
Ah, tremendous. Amazing. Skaya.
Okay.
Skaya. Thank you so much.